It is such an honor to be here with you. I mean, the speakers, can you hear? Is the speaker on? It's such an honor to be with you. Some of the speakers that you've heard earlier in the day are just absolutely my idols. Some of the stories that they didn't tell you about is how they've suffered as a result of the medical industrial complex attacking them, but I mean, even to the point of going to jail. I don't think Simone Gold told you about that story, but there's a great price to pay. And I was one of those pediatricians. You know, she spoke of pediatricians. They're an odd lot, very liberal, very woke. And for 40 years, I practiced pediatrics, adolescent medicine. I had tens of thousands of children and families that I took care of, and I did just what I was told to do. I was an employed physician in a hospital environment. I didn't own my practice. I saw patients every 10 to 15 minutes and just did, and vaccinated freely, based on the knowledge that I was given in my training, which is pretty much mainstream. And that's pretty much what all the pediatricians are doing. And I had to speak to that. God was giving me a download during Simone's talk. I was getting emotional there in the corner because I was one of those people. And it wasn't for COVID coming 5 years ago that things changed for me, because the scales came off my eyes and I was able to see what was actually happening. And because I made a stand, I spoke to my administration. Well, actually they came to me. I saw an autistic child in my office. They were from a lower socioeconomic status. They were very fearful, wearing masks. I went into a room. I didn't know this family. They weren't one of my regular patients. And they were wanting to get jabbed. They wanted the COVID vaccine. And I actually used informed consent. I counseled them to the pros and the cons of the vaccine. But really, to be honest, I counseled them negatively. I was encouraging this 13-year-old not to get the vaccine. And ultimately, I didn't vaccinate. But let me tell you what the consequence of that action was. It played out a week later. I got called into the HR office of the hospital, into a small 10 by 10 room with a single table about this side. And I sat there all alone. And it's like, I was on call that day. I didn't need to be in this room. I was busy. And then in walks the administrator, the HR person, and I recognized what was happening. They told me in not so many words that I was being released from my duty immediately. They were going to execute a 90-day termination clause for no cause, meaning I didn't do anything wrong, so they would have no legal basis. They told me not to bother to come back to work tomorrow. They paid me through my 90 days, and after that, my career was over. And I went home. I had 10,000 children, handicapped kids, families that had been taken care of for 30 years, and all of a sudden, they lost their medical home. I was a teacher and educator. I professed to medical students and nursing students. I was devastated. I went home. I gotta say, it was the lowest point in my life. I left my wife. My wife is a surgeon, very capable surgeon at the hospital delivering babies. I was the pediatrician arm of that unit. And she was forced to continue to work at the hospital in her surgical capability, but no one wanted to operate with her because her husband did not follow the mandate. She wore a scarlet letter. No one would look at her in the eye, and she suffered at my hand. At least that's what I felt. It was some months later, after not practicing medicine and thinking about what I was going to do with my life, that I came into the convergence zone that Lance is talking about. I was watching a TV show. It was The Chosen. Are you familiar with it? The Chosen? I think it's not totally accurate, you know. but it's good. It's a very good show, I think. And I was sitting, and I was really at a very, very low point. And in that first episode, and you might want to look it up. You might want to look at The Chosen, and go to episode 1, season 1. And at the end of that season, Yeshua is talking to Mary Magdalene, and she's coming out. She's possessed with demons. She's about to take her life. And he looks at her lovingly in the eyes, and he says, "Mary, I have called you by name, and you are mine." He chose her. He chose her. And it was in that instant, in a TV show, that Yeshua was speaking to me again. And you don't know my salvation journey. I was saved 25 years ago. But I was reminded that I had been in bondage in Egypt for 30 years, and that God just gave me an exodus, and I didn't recognize it. And I took that opportunity to reinvent myself, to profess what I had always been doing, and now I don't just take care of children, I take care of adults. I solve complicated problems. I'm not in traditional medicine anymore. I'm in my own practice where people come and seek me out. I don't see very many patients, but I see difficult patients. I still see some children, but to be quite honest, they're not able to see me. So I have to leave it to the rest of the medical community, and I hope they get on the stick with following and not rebuking the vaccine re-regulations that are about to take place. I think RFK Jr. is doing a fantastic job. The problem though with the AAP is they are rebuking the CDC changes, and they want to keep the current vaccine schedule, and they're doubling down and saying that we are not going to give medical exemptions, we're not going to give religious exemptions, and if you don't get vaccinated, we're going to drop you from our rosters, and in doing so, coerce the public so that they might not even be able to go and get a public education. This is the power of these rogue, woke entities that are controlling all of the pediatricians in the United States. So I feel very, very badly for the pediatricians. I pray that they're able to break out. And I want to let you know that you're here for a reason. You're here to hear this, to be witness to it, and to realize that Yeshua is in the room right now. He's speaking to me. He's speaking to you. You need to relate this to other families, what you've heard here today, so that you can tell them that there is hope, that there are doctors that don't want to follow the mandates, that what you've been told by the mainstream media about vaccines and all this, it's all going to go away. I know it is. And I'm eager for those moments to come. But that's not why you came today. You came to hear about GLP-1, which is a major download of information, and I'm going to give it to you. So I'd like to just preface this by saying, you have some bags on your table that are these American flag bags. Go ahead and open them up. Inside is a worksheet, and there are some QR codes and some things for a little checklist, but on that last page, you've got a little place to scribble and write. I would ask that you have your cameras at ready. I have a lot of QR codes and a lot of pictures that you're going to want to take a photograph of to use later. And I've asked Chelsea to make a copy of my slide presentation today in the form of a PDF that at the end there will be a QR code that you'll be able to download so you can study it at home in great detail. Okay, so are you ready for a knowledge download? You ready to learn? I want you to put your thinking caps on. This is like going back to college, okay? But I'm gonna make all of you experts in weight management and GLP-1 in science, and it's not gonna be scary, okay? It's gonna be fun. I think it's fun. So let's start with this. First of all, that's my background. By the way, I wrote 2 books, and I've got a 3rd book in the queue right now, which Destiny Publishing is going to come out at the end of 2027 or at the end of 2026, called Earthsuit Chronicles. which is a divinely inspired manual to take care of your Earth suit. This is your Earth suit. You're in an Earth suit, right? You don't own your Earth suit. You are renting it. You're renting it. It has a time-limited maintenance capability, but you have to take care of it and you have to steward it, right? And it's your temple, the temple of the Holy Spirit. You're made in God's image, and that Earth suit houses it. So that book is about how to manage it, how to take care of it, how to make it perform for the 120 years that it was designed to do so. So be looking for that book when it comes out. All right, so that's my first book, The Biohacker's Guide to the Galaxy, which I do have on my table, and you can get it there, and you can also get it on Amazon. That's the Earthsuit Chronicles. Okay, we're gonna talk about the problem. We're gonna talk about obesity. It was alluded to before by Simone. In adults, 74% of adults are either obese or overweight. 2 in 5 adults are obese, and 1 in 3 adults are overweight. In children, and this is really unfortunate, 33% of children are either obese or overweight. 1 in 5 children are actually obese, and 1 in 6 children are overweight. It's a huge problem in the United States. We are a sick society. The AAP has now, this year, and again, take it from the source, the AAP. I used to belong. Now considers Ozempic to be first-line care in the treatment of obesity in children. How crazy is that? Adults, they're sicker. They have the lowest lifespan despite our United States government spending more money than every country in the world. We don't even live as long as everyone else. There's something wrong with that picture. These are the numbers. I don't know if you can see this. This is sort of, small, but just look at the color of the graphs. The top is the United States in green. Life expectancy is on the left top. Health spending in per capita is on the right. And look down in the middle at the blue, and that's the average of other countries. So you see the lifespan, the average age in the United States is 78 years. That's down. Average country is 82. So you got a 4 or 5 year differential. And yet we spend $13,400 per person, and they spend $7,300. So we spend twice as much. And what are we getting for that? Look at the graph. The one on the right is the US, the one on the left is lifespan in other countries. Look at males live 75 years, females live 81 years in the United States. In a comparable average in other countries, women live 80 years and 85 years. So we're 5 years off from everybody else. It's only getting worse. That's what the graph looks like. This is a 3.6 time difference in maternal mortality per 100,000 births. That's the United States at the top, and the comparable average for other countries is 5.1. Inexcusable. Inexcusable. Why is that? So this is our situation. We're that goldfish. We're in a really filthy tank. Really filthy tank. The water is dirty. What's the solution? We want to clean the tank, or do we want to inject the fish? Right? Everything is a drug. And you've heard this multiple times before, Hosea 4:6. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. So let's get on with the knowledge download. That's what's happening today. That's what's happening right now. So this is the knowledge, the new science of weight loss. I'm gonna make you guys experts. First thing, we're gonna talk about the basics. Next, we're gonna talk about the health factors for weight control, what you have to have working right for you to have good weight control. We're gonna talk about gut signaling. This is the whole science of GLP-1. And we're gonna talk about the good, the bad, and the alternatives. Okay, first thing, weight 101. Weight has a caloric value. 1 pound is equal to 3,500 calories, which means that if you can take 500 calories out of your day, every day, in a week, you will lose a pound. That's 2 bags, small bags of potato chips. Okay, so 500 calories, just get 500 calories out of your diet every day, you'll lose a pound at the end of the week. Conversely, you put an extra 500 calories into your diet that you don't need, At the end of the week, you'll gain a pound. Okay? Simple math. Second thing that you need to know is that we lose muscle over time. Your muscle is your life. Your muscle is your longevity. As we start to get past age 40, we lose 8% of our body weight in muscle every decade of our life. When you hit 70 years, you lose 15% every decade. When you hit 70% of your original lean muscle mass, you begin to die. You can't stand, you can't sit, you can't do the things that you need to do. You don't have the metabolic energy in your body to burn calories anymore. At all costs, we have to preserve muscle. You peak in your muscle mass when you're about 20 or 30 years, and then it's a steady decline afterwards. That's why the big push for collagen and protein and all those things, why everybody's pushing to do weightlifting and weight resistance. Okay, so you can't lose weight just specifically by exercising. What you want to do when you're exercising, you want to build muscle so you can burn calories better, because it's your metabolic engine. Okay, so muscle mass declines with age, and we need muscle for longevity. You should remember that. Okay, as I said, 20% of weight loss when you're trying to lose it comes from exercise. You will lose a little bit of weight from exercise, but 80% of your weight loss journey is what you eat or what you don't eat. When you lose weight, you burn your calories from 3 sources, right? Carbohydrates, which is all your starches, fats, which is a long-term storage, and lastly, protein, which is your last resort storage. You do not want to burn up your muscle for your weight loss. Now, where does that energy come from? Well, glucose, which is sugar, comes from your carbs and protein. So proteins can make carbohydrates, can make glucose. And ketones, you've heard of ketones before, right? Ketones are like, you hear people talk about being in ketosis. When you're in ketosis, you're burning fat. So if you can burn ketones, and the body loves ketones, your brain loves ketones. In fact, your brain is like on steroids when you're burning ketones. You become hyper alert. And it's oftentimes used as a treatment for difficult to treat diseases. Well, that process of burning calories occurs in this little thing on the right, the mitochondria. And the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, and every cell has them. Now, fat tissue doesn't have very many mitochondria. It doesn't burn calories very well. But muscle has a lot of mitochondria. As I said, it's the metabolic engine for the body, which is why we want to preserve it. The better the cells function, and you heard that from Dr. Darcy, the better the cells function, the more energy they can convert. So if you can fix the cell, you fix everything. So I want you to remember these concepts. This is the basic knowledge. Okay, now, if we need that in the background, we need healthy cells. He mentioned activation. You're hearing the same kind of, I have nothing to do with regeneration or stem cells while I support that, but you're hearing common words. And I want you to just keep hearing those common words, because that's the overlap, that's the download that you guys are gonna get. You're gonna understand that activation is essential. You need to be able to activate the cells and get them to perform at maximum capability. And the way that you do that is you signal them. And the way you signal them is the way God intended you to signal your body, which is through food. The proper selection of the proper foods will talk to your cells and talk to your genes and make them do what they're supposed to do. If you ignore that, you're not going to have a successful weight loss journey. This is at the heart. This is the basic knowledge. First pathway to activate is NRF2. I talked about this last year. I did a mastermind session on it. Get to know that word. Start to research it. I have things that I talk about on my table. That's not what I'm focusing on today. But I want you to know those words and hear them. So you should be knowing NRF2. When you have your talk with your doctor and you say, oh, I want to activate my NRF2 pathway, they're going to look at you cockeyed. They're not going to know what you're talking about. They're not trained in it. They have no idea. Everything's out of a bottle. Everything's a shot. But you're going to go in educated, and you're going to be asserting and advocating for yourselves, because if you don't, you're not being your own doctor. You're not stewarding your earth suit. You're letting someone else manage it, and you're handing it off to them. And because we're afraid to question, or we might have fear that they're going to, put us down, then we accept whatever it is that they give us, instead of knowing that I have the knowledge. I'm walking out of here. I'm finding someone else who's going to help me, because you're not. You're not invested in me. So I'm arming you with knowledge. NRF1, and the NRF1 pathway is the pathway that turns on and makes more mitochondria. You want as many mitochondria as you want, because they're the things that burn up all the fuel. You want a whole bunch of them. And NAD. NAD is about longevity and repair of DNA. All these things are available and accessible in the current climate of supplements. Okay, we're going to talk about hormones. Many of you probably are already taking some hormones. The most common hormones to take that typically start to fail as we get older are thyroid hormone and testosterone. Now, granted, women, as they get older, they start to not make as much estrogen, so that's also needed, but understand that women also need testosterone. And years ago, it wasn't given to women because it wasn't necessary, right? You don't need testosterone. It's in order to preserve your brain function and not to come down with Alzheimer's. There are basically 3 things that both men and women need, and I'll name them right now if you want to write them down. First one is vitamin D. You have to have adequate stores of vitamin D. It is not just a vitamin, it's a hormone. Number 2, testosterone. You need an adequate level of testosterone, not just for your age, but an optimal level for like a 30-year-old. Doesn't matter if you're 50, 60, or 70. You need it at the level of a 30-year-old, because that's going to sustain your muscle. It's going to keep you from having your muscles waste as you get older. It's going to put you back in the game. It's going to give you back your metabolic engine. Your energy level's going to go up, and you're going to be able to perform and carry out your godly assignments that your earth suit was programmed for. Estrogen and progesterone helps and protects your bones for women. It is not a hormone for men, obviously. But men do have a small amount of estrogen they produce, but it comes from the testosterone that they already have. Interesting point, side note, for people who take statins, I can almost guarantee you that your testosterone and estrogen levels will be suppressed, because all testosterone comes from cholesterol. If you have low cholesterol, you have low testosterone. You also have brain shrinkage. So statins, I'm not totally down with statins because they cause this premature aging. Next, the other thing that brings down your testosterone level, it's not talked about, and estrogen too, the COVID vaccine. COVID vaccine seems to accumulate preferentially in ovaries and the gonads, and consequently reduces and causes inflammation in those organs and leads to decline and early decline of testosterone, decreased fertility, which is why we're having a crisis for the young people right now. Messed up periods in women and low sperm counts in men. And unfortunately, I think it's by design. Okay, we need a healthy metabolism. I said before, of the 3 macronutrients, protein is the king. You have to have protein. That should be your #1 priority, getting enough protein. The amount of protein that we need to have every day is 1 gram for every pound of body weight. So if you're 100 pounds, you need 100 grams. It's not that easy to get. Not that easy to get. You can look up the typical protein content of different foods, but that should be your number. Whatever your weight is in pounds, that much protein. Carbs and fats, this is the food pyramid. This is the upside down food pyramid, right? Funny, right? All right, we need cofactors. Cofactors are vitamins and minerals. The B vitamins especially, B1 to 12, you can get them measured, but you don't have to. You can just take them empirically. And just know if you take B vitamins, good quality B vitamins, that turns on your metabolic engine. It makes the mitochondria hum. It makes them do their work. They burn calories better. Most people are deficient in multiples of these. And the minerals, the most important of those is probably magnesium and manganese. As trace minerals, you can get them in trace mineral packets, which you can add to water, but they are also responsible for making the metabolic engine run. Any one of those things that's missing brings the whole thing to a halt. You know, who knew, right? If you don't know this, you don't know this, and now you do. So these are simple things that you can fix. You want all the stuff to be right first before we start thinking about GLP-1 and these other things, because it's not going to work if the engine is broken. Okay, now, this is a hot topic for me. Phytonutrients. Phyto means plant, nutrient means nutrients. You need all the colors of the rainbow every single day. You need something red, you need something orange. I don't care if it's a fruit or a vegetable, it doesn't matter. You need red. You need to just go by colors. Tell the kids too, when they eat their foods, you need something orange. I don't care, it can't be a sweet tart. You know, it can't be Starburst fruit cheese. Sorry son, that's not gonna work. But carrots, mangoes, it doesn't matter. If they wanna have a mango on their plate instead of a carrot, no big deal. They got the orange, congratulate them, okay? One of every color every day. If you're missing one of those colors, same problem. There's a break in the cycle and the body doesn't know how to put the food together, okay? Just trying to keep it super simple. And that's every day. Okay, talk about gut health. Why is that important? Well, your microbiome, your intestine, you have more cells in your intestine than you have human cells. They're responsible for your digestion. They're responsible for your immune system. That sort of sounds important, right? So if you're feeding your body foods that are poor in nutrition and you're crampy and having diarrhea or constipated or whatever, those are all signs that your gut's not working right and you're not getting the full complement of food out of your intestine. So those probiotics are the garden in your gut. They help you to digest your food and they make the process go easier, so you'll be efficient. The second reason is, and I'll get to it a little later on, those probiotics are responsible for your own GLP-1 production. Your GLP-1 production occurs in your intestine, and they are encouraged by the very bacteria that you're trying to support. So if you've got a bad complement of bacteria, your natural GLP-1 is low, you're not going to have an appetite signal to stop eating. So you see how important that is? And everyone's been talking about probiotics. What's the big deal with probiotic? You know, hey, I'll take that after my antibiotic. No, you need them all the time because they're dying all the time. They're very fragile and you have to cultivate them, right? Prebiotics. Prebiotics are nothing more than fiber. So now you're an expert. You know, fiber and prebiotics are the same thing. Fiber is the food for the probiotics. Fiber is the food for the probiotics. So whatever fiber you put in your food is what feeds your microbiome. They don't want sugar. They don't want all the other foods that you're putting in your tummy. They are looking for fiber to eat. And when you give them sugar, which is like gasoline, they blow up and they make lots of gas and they make lots of acid and you have all kinds of stomach upset, bloating, etc. Postbiotics. A lot of you haven't heard the word postbiotics. Postbiotics are what the bacteria make. What they make. They make vitamins. Vitamin K is a postbiotic. But they also make something called SCFAs, S-C-F-A. And I'll define what that is in a minute. But it is the produce from the garden. SCFAs. We want SCFAs in our... Why is that? I'm going to talk about it in a second, but SCFAs stand for short-chain fatty acids. You don't need to remember that, just know SCFA. When you start talking to your doctor, your family practice, and say, I need to get my SCFAs up. Where'd you come from, lady? You know? So SCFAs, and they have other names, but SCFA is the general category of postbiotics. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the chemical signalers. So we've already talked about the macronutrients, we've talked about your microbiome, we've talked about your vitamins, your minerals, but now we're going to talk about how does the body talk to itself. The first way is through peptides. Peptides are all the rage right now. There's a peptide for everything. There's a peptide for making your joints heal faster. They work. They're small little sections of protein, not quite a protein because they're too small, but they're made of amino acids, and they have these sequences, and the one that you all know about and have heard about before is insulin. Insulin is the original peptide. So you give yourself a shot of insulin if you're a diabetic, and your blood sugar will go down. It signals the pancreas to make insulin. That's its job. The stomach also has a peptide. It secretes one called ghrelin. Ghrelin makes your stomach growl, grr, you're hungry. It's your hunger signal, and it's made by your stomach. And then there's another one called leptin, and that's made by adipose tissue, and it is your satiety hormone. It's like, oh, I'm full, I'm good, I don't need to eat anymore. And it's the imbalance of those things. If you're predominantly got more ghrelin than you have leptin, you're hungry. If you got more leptin than you've got ghrelin, you're not hungry. Plus GLP-1. These are all the internal signals that you have. And this is all created by the different foods that you put in your stomach, the vitamins and cofactors that make that thing hum along, and the fact that you're tending the garden in your microbiome. Make sense? Right? Simple. It's really, actually really simple. You just need to know it. Okay, now we're going to talk about what you all wanted to hear about. We're going to talk about these big signalers, GLP-1, and we're going to talk about GIP, and then we're going to talk about some other ones that you don't know about, but it's important to know. And I only want you to recognize them, that I said them. You don't have to memorize this. I don't have a quiz. Lance, do I have a quiz? I guess he's not going to quiz you. PYY, PPY, and CCK, these are intestinal peptides. They have other things that they talk to, mostly brain and muscle. And the last one is GLP-2, which nobody's ever heard of. And GLP-2 is the GLP that actually heals your intestine. It has a different function altogether. We're not going to really talk about it for this talk. Okay, so let's just understand what the problem is again. Humans were designed to store fat efficiently when we are in a scarce environment. We didn't always grow up in the world that we are right now where food is plentiful. We were hunting for our food. So we learned, our bodies learned, we're very efficient, our intestines are very efficient in converting and storing fat. That is by design. We live in abundance, so weight loss becomes difficult in this environment. We eat out of emotion, we eat out of stress, we eat out of inflammation. All those things are pushing us in the wrong direction. And in obesity and hunger, as I said, there's this imbalance of ghrelin and leptin. They're mismatched, despite the fact that we have lots of energy reserves in our body. And then our standard American diet, nicknamed SAD, is driving us to eat because the food has no nutrition in it. It's so poorly, it's over-processed and super-processed, and it has nothing in it. It's empty calories. And so you eat it and you eat it and you eat it, but your body is never ever satisfied because you're not getting what you need to live. And it has no choice, it's searching for food. Have you ever heard of, in pediatrics, there's a condition called pica. Does anybody know what pica is? Raise your hand if you've ever heard it. Okay, pica is when a child eats things that aren't food in order to try to seek nutrition. The most common thing that kids will eat will be dirt or rocks, and they'll eat it because they're looking for iron. And adults will chew on ice, or they'll eat their hair, or they'll eat paper. That's pica. It indicates it's a nutritional deficiency because our diet is missing something. Okay, so let's talk about what is GLP-1. GLP-1 stands for glucagon-like peptide. It's a peptide. And the other one is GIP, and I can't even pronounce this, and don't feel bad if you can't either, but it stands for glucose-dependent insulinotropic peptide. Just know that they both work like the same way. They help your body to have a satiety or an anti-hunger signal when your body secretes them. One is made in the L cells. Oh, you want to impress somebody? Just tell them that my L cells are making GLP. Just tell your doctor that. They're like, what planet did you get off of? And the GIP is made in the K cells. just, it's good to know this stuff because it is one of those sort of like really impressive things that when you kick it out, they know you're talking, you know what you're talking about. They won't argue with you. These are classes of hormones or peptides that are called incretins. And incretins increase insulin secretion, they inhibit stomach emptying, and they slow your digestion. It gives you a chance to eat your food. You eat something, it slows it down enough where you can get all the good stuff out of it, and then it makes you feel like, oh, I ate, right? Which is why your mom told you, chew your food 50 times before you swallow it. So you'll have enough time to taste it, eat it, absorb it, so you'll have a moment to like process it, right? And you won't, because if you eat faster than the signal is going down, you're gonna overeat. So she was right? My mom was smart. Okay, so the signaler in this case is the GLP-1. We refer in medicine to signalers as agonists. They agonize things. They stimulate things. So whenever you hear someone say, don't get confused when they start throwing around these big words, oh, I'm on a GLP-1 agonist. Okay, they're on a stimulator, they're on a signaler. So an agonist stimulates. On the other side, the receptor receives. So you have GLP-1 receptors. Where are those receptors? Well, those receptors are in your stomach, they're in your intestine, they're in your muscles, they're in your kidneys, they're in your brain, they're in your heart. The body is filled with GLP-1 receptors, which means that if you get GLP-1, all of those tissues are taking that signal and doing something with it, which is sort of interesting because you thought probably at this point GLP-1 only works on your stomach, but it works on lots of different things, and they're all really important. Now, this is what it looks like. GLP-1 hits the receptor, and it bonds to it, and then something happens. That's how it looks. It's like a lock and a key. The receptor comes out, it binds to it. It's the only thing it can bind to it. Now, the problem with GLP-1, natural GLP-1 that your body makes, is it doesn't hang around very long. And the reason that happens is because something comes around and eats it up. Pac-Man. We'll just call him Pac-Man. Pac-Man is an enzyme that your body makes. And of course, the medical industry came out with something to make that thing not work so good, so that your natural GLP-1 would hang around. They make a thing. And I won't call it what it is, but we'll just call it DPP-4. So I don't want to name it. So it eats up the GLP before it can bind to the receptor, so now the GLP doesn't do anything. So if you're degrading your GLP-1 before it has a chance to touch the receptor, nothing happens. Okay? All right, now, I want to digress for a minute. I think it's really important because there's a lot of shame that comes with this topic of GLP-1 and using Wegovy and drugs and so forth to lose weight. It's a huge problem in public, and you use what I give you here, this future knowledge, as to get into it with discernment and understand that everyone's journey in this is different. It's not your fault. There's all for years and years, oh, you're lazy, that's why you gain weight, you eat too much. You gotta understand this is all about the cell. It's all about how the cells function. And if you can just get back to that and figure out what is that magic that's happening, what happened, what didn't go right, that's the challenge, is to figure that part out. God will guide you in making your decisions. Okay, so let's talk about human pharma versus big pharma. We have synthetic GLP-1. It's biosimilar. It's not bioidentical. Your GLP-1 that's in your intestine is bioidentical. It's made for you. God made it. It's how your body works. It's what it's looking for. The synthetic stuff is taking it. You're taking a drug. All the products that are out there are synthetic. There is no natural GLP-1, period. They're both peptides. Now, the synthetic GLP-1, this is truth, was a venom-derived synthetic. The original came from a natural venom called Exendin 4. Exendin 4 is Gila monster venom. And it just so happens that it looks very similar to our natural GLP-1. There might be a couple little amino acids that are different, but it was unusual because even though it was a venom, it caused insulin secretion. It did all the same things that GLP-1 did. The thing was, is it hung around for a whole lot longer because the body had a hard time getting rid of it. So they started using it in the medical industry to help people with diabetes get more insulin response, and that's why it became a diabetic drug that you could inject. It wasn't insulin. It was working on a different pathway for people who need a little extra help. It just so happens that they found that everyone who was using this Exendin 4, which is also then became Exentide, which is also referred to as Byetta, is the brand name, those people were losing some weight. And they said, I bet you we could monetize this. We could probably turn this into maybe purify it a little bit better, maybe get a little less side effects, and I bet you we could use this as a weight loss product. And that's exactly what they did. So what does it do? It lowers blood sugar. It slows and paralyzes the gut, slows it down, can paralyze it. It releases insulin, but there's a little bit of a risk of thyroid cancer and a little bit of a risk of multiple endocrine neoplasia, which is basically adrenal cancer. There are some side effects. And again, it's not your GLP-1, it's an animal's GLP. It's a venom. It's not even his GLP-1. Okay, so knowing that, now obviously I don't want to scare you all, but medicine has a long, illustrious history of using toxins and poisons to treat people. Okay? Digoxin for the heart, to make your heart beat better. Came from the digitalis plant. It's a toxin. Belladonna, also referred to as black nightshade, is used as an antispasmodic and keep you from cramping for your intestine. That is a toxin. In sufficient doses, it makes you stop breathing. You've got atropine. You've got vinca, which is the vincristine used for chemotherapy. It is a toxin from the vinca plant. And then you have your GLP-1 agonist at the bottom, which is exenatide or Byetta. Oh, and did I mention enalapril and captopril? Those are blood pressure medicines. Those are from snake venom. Enalapril and captopril, commonly used for blood pressure, made from snake venom. So, you know, in the right doses, I guess it has some good use, and I'm not denying that it works, but just understand what the risks are. Okay, so let's talk about the other biosimilar GLP-1s. Are you guys with me so far? I haven't lost you all? It's a lot of science, right? But you're learning, right? Are you going to be experts? I'm serious. Okay, so liraglutide or Victoza was originally used for diabetes. That became then dulaglutide, which then became semaglutide, which became tirzepatide. These are all GLP-1 synthetic agonists, stimulators of the GLP-1 system, right? And then the brand names of those are Mounjaro and Wegovy and so forth, okay? But they're all basically the same type of product, some with a little less side effects, some with a little more weight loss. All of them derived from venom, synthetically, very expensive. And the difference is they lasted so long. It wasn't 2 days now, it was a week. You inject it and it stays with you a week. It ties up that receptor, it binds the receptor and says, don't eat. Get some more insulin kicked out, slow your bowels down, and we'll see you again in another week when you shoot up some more. And it works because you don't want to eat. And when you don't eat, you lose weight. And the weight loss is incredible. I'm not saying it doesn't work. It absolutely does work. But you're not just losing weight. You're losing not just fat, but you're losing muscle. And when you lose muscle, you lose longevity. When you lose longevity, you lose life. Because you're depleting, you're accelerating your demise as you enter into a state where you cannot recover that muscle mass that you've lost, and you start to look old. And the first place it shows is what? Ozempic face, Ozempic butt, different words for it, but you know, you can tell people look sickly on it, and they're not getting enough nutrition. Okay, now there's ways to mitigate it to some extent, right? But it's just important to know the facts. So what's the bad? So you can have rebound weight gain. So what happens if you just stop it, you use it, and you get good weight loss, and you lose 30 pounds, fantastic. The moment you stop it, you do not have any more natural GLP-1. It's been suppressed for weeks. It takes months for it to come back. So during that time, you have no off signal. So you're super hungry. And so when you quit, and without weaning it or doing it slowly, the rebound weight gain is huge. You gain as much weight back as you lost, sometimes even more. And you have less muscle mass now, which means that your metabolic engine doesn't even burn the calories as fast as it used to because all those mitochondria are gone. So you lose that ability to digest food. That leads to then irregularity of your gut, constipation, bloating, burping, all the things that go along with not having a gut that's working. In some cases, the gut movement doesn't come back. It's permanent. You have permanent gut paralysis. They become intestinal cripples. You do not know who that's going to happen to. Completely, you can't predict. You don't know. It's sort of like a Russian roulette. It's based on higher doses, and it's based on length of use. Also, when you've been on GLP-1, it's very difficult if you need a surgery to get a surgery because your intestines are not emptying appropriately, and you run the risk that you will have some sort of vomit in the process of putting you to sleep, and you could choke in your sleep or aspirate, which could be life-threatening. So the anesthesiologists are very nervous about people who are on these products. And going back, there's a lot of problems with lawsuits because of this in the US and in the EU. And by the way, in the EU, Ozempic and all the other products, GLP-1s, are not indicated for weight loss. It's only the United States. We're the only country that uses this product for weight loss. All the other countries do not. It's for diabetes. All the money for Novo Nordisk is coming from weight loss, and it's all US. And now our president, and I love Donald Trump, but he made a deal with the devil because he has now allowed mainstream to get Ozempic even cheaper, making it a mainstream product for everyone to use for weight loss. It's become much more available. You're seeing it already. You're seeing it on TV. You can call 1-800-WEIGHT-LOSS and they'll send you 4 syringes of Ozempic compounded. And you just answer some simple questions. You pay them their money and no oversight. So it's really, really gotten out of hand where this is the simple, stamp pad answer to a huge problem because it's a huge market. Okay, so the bad is the cost. You need a doctor, you need a prescription, even if it's an online doctor. It may not be covered by insurance because normally the insurance is at least trying not to spend money. So they want you to make sure you have the appropriate high BMI and that you failed all the other methods first and you've been counseled. That's probably more of the right thing to do. And usually you have to document it like crazy to get it approved and paid for. But you can always buy it on your own and just say, forget that, I'll just pay the cash. I mentioned you have muscle loss crisis, reduced longevity. And the way you counter that is with muscle work, exercise, weight resistance, and lots of protein. That's sort of the answer to that. But you gotta be able to eat protein. It's hard to eat protein when you don't feel hungry. And now you're being asked to eat 100 grams of protein in a day and then work out when maybe you feel nauseated because you used it, It's really hard to work out in that sort of situation. Now, I spoke about it on the podcast. There is some sense of emotional change for people. There's a sense of calm. I don't care about food. It doesn't bother me anymore. Don't worry, I'm not hungry. Well, that becomes muted joy in time. And the devil was to, steal your joy, kill and destroy. And you just have to sort of think about that a little bit. If your joy is muted, if nothing brings you pleasure anymore, if you don't enjoy life, that can very easily slip into depression. And there have been cases of suicide and cases of severe depression for people who have been on synthetic GLP-1s. That doesn't occur, by the way, with your natural GLP-1. There's a risk of pancreatitis, and then I mentioned thyroid cancer. So those are the big ones. Okay, so what about the natural one? Let's talk about the good stuff for a second. Your natural GLP-1, it's short-lived, it doesn't last very long. It's made in the L cells, I told you that. It communicates with the enteric nervous system, the ENS, that's your vagus nerve. Now, I mentioned that for a reason because I'm gonna talk about it in a little bit. Your vagus nerve is the nerve that runs from your brain all the way down to your tail. And it touches everything It touches your heart, it touches your lungs, it touches your pancreas, your intestines, it controls bowel movements, it controls heart rate, it controls a lot of things. It is the opposite of anxiety. When the vagus nerve is stimulated, it is the chill. It is the relaxation part of it. That's a balance of your system. You have the sympathetic system, which gets you all revved up and nervous and anxious, flight or fight, and the parasympathetic system is the part that relaxes you. That's controlled by the vagus nerve. So that's the superhighway to the brain from the intestine. Natural GLP-1 uses that to communicate to your brain, to tell you not to eat. So it's possible that you might be able to take advantage of that. It has beneficial effects, as I told you, on muscles, pancreas. It tells muscles to grow. GLP-1 tells muscles to hang in there. I'm talking about natural GLP-1. I'm not talking about synthetic. The encouragement is that your muscles perform better because they're ready to do work. Your brain is open, you're cognitively awake, you are able to concentrate. People say that they think better. And it, as I mentioned, but what's great is you don't have muscle loss. There's no muscle loss or loss of metabolism. That doesn't happen. Okay, so this is a picture. There's your lower intestines, there's your L cells. And so when you take a synthetic GLP-1 agonist, you're taking it, but like I said, the natural one, you're making it, that is activation. That's turning on these pathways. So how can we activate it? So I said you have to have GLP-1 for your health. It's essential. You must have it. If you do not have natural GLP-1 because it's either been suppressed by the drug or you just don't make a lot of it, we gotta do something to get it higher because all your cells and all your organs will benefit. So GLP-1 is not bad, it's just that it needs to be natural. Okay, so there's that superhighway. There's the GI tract, adipose tissue, pancreas, stomach, and you can see that they all talk with their little signals. Look at the top one, GLP-1, CCK, and PYY, there's those letters again. Leptin from the fat, pancreas, insulin, ghrelin from the stomach, and they all go and they talk to your brain. That's the connection, okay? All that has to be working good. Okay, so ideally we want to increase our natural GLP-1. Now, we're going to talk about cutting edge science. We're going to talk about what's new in the world. And this is where I get psyched out because, not psyched out, but psyched up because I've used this stuff. I personally use it. I use it with my patients. I have great results with it. But different strokes for different folks. Some people just, I want a shot. Okay, well, I counsel them, and we talk about it. We talk about what's reasonable to do. All right. So you can increase your natural GLP-1 using a product that's called MB Core, MB Enhance. It stands for mind, body. MB stands for mind, body, for obvious reasons. Your body and your mind are talking to each other. It's a natural activator. It uses botanicals to turn on the very signal in the L cells to make more GLP-1. It turns on also GIP, PYY, PPK, isn't this fun, all these letters? CCK, all those other organs are also kicking out their thing too. So it's not just GLP-1, it's all of them. It's exactly what we want. I mean, it sounds pretty good. All right, so you have your mind and your body and they both are being talked to. Remember, your gut is your second brain. This is where that whole concept of your microbiome gets to play into it, why I was talking about it, because it's part of the system. So you have this dual activation mechanism. One bottle of this is pills that you take in the morning, approximately 30 minutes before you eat on an empty stomach. You let it work, and I'll tell you what it does in a second. And the other one is a drink that you can drink at any time in the day, and you can add it to whatever you want to add it to. You can add it to milk, water, juice, preferentially something with protein in it. I like a protein or a protein powder to add to it. That seems to make it work better. These are the bioflavonoids. These are the natural products. You ingest it, it goes down to your intestine. It gets up to the intestinal L cell, and your body starts making GLP-1. And it's all done through nature. These are God's signals. These are God's ingredients. They're things like hesperidine and berberine and matcha and kombucha. These are things that may sound familiar to you, right? But this has been scientifically investigated And this is not just because I said so, but there are studies that show that this testing was done in people. And it was done in probably, a number of people and cited in the literature. So what it does do, it increases GLP-1 by 250%, increases GIP by 140%, in addition to the 500% rise that normally occurs after you eat. You get an increase in your natural GLP of 500. So really what you're talking about is close to almost 700% increase in GLP-1. It increases the precursors for GLP-1 by 95%, increases the enzyme that makes GLP by 32%, increases the actual receptor in your brain and the places where it attaches to, that goes up by 53%, which means there's more to work on it, and it reduces that DPP4, that Pac-Man, it reduces that eating, that destruction by 38%. So it's working on a lot of different levels. And then the drink powder, which you take, is also processed, and then it talks to the microbiome, which is going to be really pretty because you're going to have it all set up, and it creates butyrate, which is a SCFA. Remember I mentioned SCFAs? Short-chain fatty acids, and it uses those ingredients. So you've got a different system of activation to increase your GLP-1 that way, and the two together work as a system to increase your natural GLP-1. Okay, so now it helps if your NRF2 is already activated. I told you about that before because you want to reduce your oxidative stress. It helps if your microbiome is already optimized, meaning you're already on a decent probiotic. You want all that stuff to be right. It's making some assumptions, right? It helps to make sure that the right strains of bacteria that make that GLP-1 from SCFAs are good in your L cells, that your L cells are happy. And then also it increases PPY by 1,280%, which is absolutely ridiculous. That's the thing that talks to your muscle, and increases PYY, which talks to your brain to suppress appetite. So two other peptides that help to suppress. So it's working on not just GLP-1, even though it's marketed as a GLP-1 increaser, it increases a lot of different things. So the greatest part about it is you get no muscle loss and you get 6% muscle gain. The only product that's out there that has muscle gain and not muscle loss, the average weight loss is 1 to 2 pounds per week, 27% average visceral fat loss, 5% total body fat, which means that this could be used as an exit strategy for people who are already on injections and want to come off of it, or possibly as an alternative, or possibly used simultaneously with the injectable GLP-1 so that you can use a lesser dose and maybe come off of it sooner. And then some other research that came out was that if you use NRF2 and GLP-1, we did this study, by the way, this is part of the science, that came out in 2025. It turns out that 4 new antioxidant pathways were turned on, 9 new fat metabolism pathways were turned on. That's if you had this NRF2 activation that I told you about, which is, we'll talk about this later at the table. If you come out there, new cells were activated for cell barrier and tissue repair, especially for folks that have leaky gut and those issues. Improved nerve signaling, improved coordination. So using these in concert with one another, you get greater than the sum of any one use of a specific product, okay? All right, I know I'm tight for time here. I'm gonna start flying through this. If you scan this, this is your first picture, take it with a phone. If you scan that on the website that produces this is the LifeVantage company, they give you a weight tracking card and basically daily affirmations to keep track of your progress. So it's meant to be a system that you use. They want you to be successful. So if you got that, just take a snapshot. By the way, remember you're gonna get a copy of this whole slideshow, okay, at the end. So you'll have it all that you can print off at home and mill over it and understand it better, because some of it is you're not going to get. Okay, I want to talk about something else. So there's another product, cutting edge stuff. I want to harbor on it too much because it's not, to my mind, it's not quite as good as the other, but there's something called Calicurb, which is called Amerisate. Amerisate works on a different receptor. It works on a bitter taste receptor in your mouth. If you were to eat something poisonous, you would spit it out, because you know that that's your natural signal that this is bad for me, I shouldn't eat it. Well, your stomach has that same bitter taste receptor, so maybe if we could get it past your mouth and you didn't taste it, and it still hit your intestine, maybe we could get the same effect. So they tested that out, and they found that if they used New Zealand hops, and you took an extract of New Zealand hops, the New Zealand government spent $20 million on this to discover these bitter taste receptors, you could increase your GLP-1 and some of those other hormones also. So this is another method of weight loss, but it's used as a pill. It talks to your brain and gut to suppress appetite, and they're present in all mammals, which is why animals spit things out that don't taste good. And has this, and so as opposed to getting a sweet taste, which tells you eat more, you get a bitter taste and tells you spit it out. Stop eating. Okay, they spent, like I said, $20 million, and it increased GLP by six-fold, 6 times, but that included the normal 5-time increase that occurs after eating anyways. So maybe it's really only a 1-time increase. Does also, same with the CCK and PYY. The problem is it only lasts 4 to 6 hours. The sensation of not being hungry on it, you take it, and you take it an hour before you eat, and then for an hour, approximately 4 to 6 hours, maybe you don't want to eat as much, but then it wears off. The other one, the appetite suppression and the elevation of GLP-1 was measured as all day in the fasting state. So the next morning, you still had GLP-1 levels that were high. It stays for a whole day. This is 4 to 6 hours. You take it twice a day. Okay, so that's that one. It's also a good alternative, but I just want to let you know it's available, and you need a doctor's prescription for it. I want to mention 3 more things, real fast. P84 Phyto Power 1 and 2. Okay, this is a phytonutrient. Remember I said the phytonutrients, all the colors of the rainbows? Probiotics, postbiotics, prebiotics, digestive enzymes, everything in one drink powder. You take that, you are done. That's the only thing you need for your probiotic. If you have a probiotic, there is nothing on the planet that compares to this. This is what I use in my practice. Everything else is a joke. Okay, this is the only thing that I use. People have complete life-changing stories that they tell you when they take this consistently. Their gut is set. They're digesting everything properly. Nothing passes through undigested. They're not gassy. They're not bloaty. Okay, and they're getting all the colors of the rainbow, and they don't have to eat 100 bowls of fruit and vegetables to get all the colors of the rainbow. And it's great. You could do it with the kids if they're not eating their colored fruits and vegetables. You give them this powder, you make it a protein shake with it, and you drink it once a day. Okay, and then I just mentioned there's a vagal stimulator, which I have on my table, which you can see, and if anyone's heard of, that's a parasympathetic vagal stimulator. Put it on your neck. Makes you really calm. You want to go to sleep. You don't take drugs. You're not taking Prozac. It reduces your cortisol level because you're so chill. People wonder what you did. And it's like, but it's discreet. 2 minutes on your neck. Go in the closet. Go in the closet. Do it. 2 minutes. Come back out, and you're like, who are you? Right? Seriously, and it works. And you can do it at least 2 times a day, but you can do it more times a day. It just depends on what you want to do. That's a device. And the last one is a Prolon, which is fasting mimicking diet. It mimics a 5-day fast without fasting. You take it for 5 days, you lose about 5 pounds right away. Your gut microbiome is completely reset. You do it 1 cycle every month. And they have programs specifically for people who have diabetes. Those programs include a coach. They do counseling, part of the deal. They send you a pack every month for a year. And it is a commitment, of course. They send you a scale. They want you to be successful, and a lot of people have reversed their diabetes. Just saying, it's another option. This is about cutting-edge technology, guys. This is about having all the resources available to you, whatever your journey is, that you have some way to go. You came here for knowledge. You want to know how this stuff works. The Phyto, that's what it looks like. There are 2 bags. If you scan that code, it'll take you directly to the page. So if you want to take a picture of that, take that. It explains all the different components of it. We have it at the table so you can see it. I'm not selling anything from the table. I'm presenting to you options. I'm here as an educator. I don't treat disease. It's not my practice. I can't treat you. I can advise you. These are all the ingredients that are in it. Okay, 84 different components. All those essential whole foods, pre and postbiotics, 20 billion units, I think 20 different strains, 10 billion units. different types of botanical blends. That's the Phytopower. I love this product. I love it. My wife just doesn't want me to run out of it. 84 plant nutrients, 14 gut peptides, secondars, pre and postbiotics, digestive enzymes. Okay, there's the vagal stimulator, runs on your phone. Like I said, simple device, and it encourages weight loss. And then remember, because it's reducing cortisol, you're not stressed out, which means you're not going to stress eat. Okay, and I think that's about it. So let me just show you the last picture. If you click on this, and this is also on your thing, there's a survey sheet that if you fill that out and say, oh, I want to know more about this, it's a form that I'll see and I'll get back with you on an email, so you'll see that. And also it links to other products and things that I offer, including opportunities to get my book. And then lastly, there is a worksheet, which is what you are holding there. It's a copy of it. And it is the step-by-step checklist of all the things I talked about, what you need to check, what hormones you need to check, what tests to ask your doctors to do on you as you work through it before you make your final decision about what you want to do to treat yourself. And that's it.
Well, wait, go back to the last slide. It says the end, but there's a book there. And this is the Biohacker's Guide to the Galaxy?
Guide to the Galaxy, which I have on my table. I'm selling it at $10 if you want to get it. If you get one of the products and order it here and show me that you've done it, I'll give it to you for free. Okay? I mean, it's a great book. It's a great primer about how to do basic health. My new book will be coming out this year. It's 340 pages. It is a complete divine download. It is how I got into medicine, what happened to me, what I saw, how it changed my life, what it looks like, and all related to spiritual and biblical concepts, and all tied together. And it's going to be amazing.